Okay, and as you can see now, Jacobine has joined us, and also we've joined by Richard Howitt, Senior Associate at Frank Bold. And Richard was involved in a number of discussions last week and is chairing today's discussion. So without further ado, we don't have long, so I'd like to hand over to you, Richard, to get the discussion underway.
Thank you very much, Liam. We're all part of Responsible Business Europe 2020, and thank you very much in particular to Jacobine Gupta from DSM, who's just given the presentation on purposeless innovations for sustainable food systems. Good morning live, Jacobine. And my first question to you, clearly we're talking about system change, what governments and companies can do, but we're also talking about individual behaviour change by consumers. In the presentation, you said start with yourself and you were aiming that at companies. What's actually the relationship between the two and how we get both right?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Richard. And thanks for these great questions. The system change, I think it starts indeed with the individual to have an understanding how all ties together. And when we talk about food systems, there are multiple stuff. It's climate, it's nature, it's health and social impacts. And if you know yourself as a citizen and a consumer that these things belong together, you also already got a sense what to do. On the corporate level, which I spoke about in the presentation, we use it also to inform scientists, human and animal nutrition scientists and materials to develop new products, which are low carbon and better for health. And how does this tie together? Well, as a consumer, you can ask producers, how is it made? Where is it coming from? Is it produced with the lowest environmental footprint? Is it good for me? Has it the good nutritional profiles? So I really think everybody has a role to play, the corporations that help to produce the food and the individuals.
Indeed, and our commitment to inform them, as you say. Now, DSM is committed to science-based targets, and with carbon, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's clear. But with food systems, you talked in the presentation about multiple targets. So in this conference, which is about transition, how do you measure using science-based targets all of the different objectives that you have in terms of a sustainable food system?
Very good question and very difficult. When we had a couple of years ago the discussion about climate change, it was indeed clear we needed to reduce carbon emissions and we needed to set science-based targets to take your proportion. With food systems, we have other parameters. We also have public health, we have social impact and nature or biodiversity. And I see it as different lanes on a big roadway. Greenhouse gas, we're quite advanced in terms of metrics and measurement. Nature is coming now with science-based targets for nature being developed. Health, I think with the nutrition scientists, we can go a long way, but still needs to be done. And social impact is also still further to be developed. So we are in different gears, but we need to be in all lanes and we need to progress. And if you were saying, if compared to climate, where are we? I believe we are at the start. So that's why it's very much needed that organizations like the United Nations step up and start to create more awareness.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. We've got questions coming in, by the way, on the Q&A, and to the audience, please do add to those. One that we've got here is about reducing the environmental protein footprint of animal protein. So in the presentation, you talked about animal protein being important. Yes, we have to manage it, but it is an important part of the diet. But how can, our questioner asks, we reduce the environmental footprint of animal protein rather than just reducing it altogether?
Also, very good question. When you look at proteins, we know that we need to shift to much more plants proportionally, but also people will continue, and that's also good for health, consume eggs and fish and meat and so on. And there's also a world to win. For instance, with other husbandry practices, with grazing cattle, with combination of crops and cattle and feed additives, you can significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and protect biodiversity. So it would be very smart if all the companies come to the table and bring their innovations, and that also governments start to see what's there, what's out there, what can we already apply.
And DSM, you're giving this presentation because you are known, sparing your blushes, for being very innovative in this space and being one of the corporate leaders. But you started off as Dutch State Mining. You were a bulk chemicals producer now some decades ago, and you've turned into a very modern, innovative life science company. And I think, are there any lessons in that for how change has taken place within the company that you could share with us?
That's a very nice question. Thanks. It is true that 120 years ago, the company started as the Dutch State Mines. It has transformed itself a couple of times to petrochemicals, to fine chemicals and life science, material science. And as of next year, we will be predominantly a food and nutrition company. And I would say maybe 3 reasons. One, I think there's always a strong leadership with an antenna for what happens outside. So also seeing opportunities and making smart divestments and acquisitions. Second, I think there's a strong culture also of the leadership and new on board, trained to be agile and to be flexible and be smart. And the third is the science foundations that always are there. People always say, come with the facts. If we don't have them, we will co-develop them, or we will find them. And that has helped to create a sense of purpose, to know that we provide products that contribute to solve societal issues. So it's, I think those things combined. So for other companies, build and search for strong leaders, also build a strong culture, and certainly see how you can make your decision science-based.
Fascinating, and I hope that will be useful to businesses across all the sectors that are part of this conference. You've talked a lot about the situation now, why it's important, what you and others can do. This is, again, this conference about clean and just transition. Can you look ahead to 2050 and tell us what the agriculture and food system of 2050 will look like when this transition that we all hope for has taken place? Give us a bit of a visionary picture of what agriculture and food will look like in that year.
Pleased to do so. And I step in the big shoes of Christina Figueres, who wrote a book about the future we want in 2050, focusing on climate. And she wrote about a positive scenario, or the best possible, and a negative. And I'm an optimist and I want to be positive. So I choose the positive one. In the future, in a few decades, farmers will be well informed to breed and grow the best possible food that is highly nutritious, and know exactly also how the food contributes to healthier diets, which is nutritious with the right vitamins, minerals, and lacking also the bad ingredients. It's also a system which is probably very regional and regenerative, that reduces the environmental impact. So everybody's very aware how to reduce emissions, how to protect biodiversity with this combined systems of livestock and crops, intercropping, etc. So I foresee the farmers and the food producers will be well informed and tailor towards healthier diets, sustainable production, where everybody has his fair share.
Yeah, I can imagine all the farmers who are watching thinking we are well informed, but I think we're all being well informed in a different way, aren't we? I've got a question here from Joseph, one of our participants, who says, what's the biggest innovation that we can expect to see in the food industry in the coming years? Give us one innovation that's coming from the food industry.
Perhaps these regional abilities to do everything with what's regionally available and appeals to the regional taste. I think it's ridiculous that we ship food so far around the world. If we do it more smart, we could provide within the region, and that makes it we need then more flexibility also in the product development and in the factories. It doesn't go automatic, but being more connected to the landscapes and to the regions, this will protect the earth and eventually also bring people pleasurable and healthy food.
It's a really interesting point, that, because many people say that we need more local food systems and supply. We don't need all these food miles or kilometres. But you're a global company, and you and others in the space are global companies. What implications does that have for you as a company if we're going to move away from global markets in quite the same way that we've all got used to?
Well, recipes can be still global, and production methods with some, I see it for me as equalizers, can still be replicable. So only the how to source it exactly and how to produce it exactly will differ. So the competences of flexible sourcing, flexible production will be probably those that that everybody would need in the future, including us.
Indeed. Look, we've run out of time, which is such a shame, because you've got immense knowledge, and I know, and I congratulate you personally and the company for the leadership that you give in this space. I think we've learned this morning that we all have a part to play, and that transition has and will go on. And you've also given us that vision for what food and agriculture will look like by the time we get to what we hope will be net zero too. And you've told us in the presentation about the UN Food Summit next year. So everyone just watch out for these developments. And you said how the UN itself can help us develop and apply the targets that we've seen in the carbon arena. Jacobine, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, to do all of this. You've made a fantastic contribution to the conference. Thank you from me too. It's a pleasure to take part. And back to Liam.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Liam.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. A very interesting discussion. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. But take care. Okay, anyone that joined us earlier today would have heard an excellent discussion between Gary Nell of National Geographic and Tom Rivett-Carnac of Global Optimism on how National Geographic's unique business model ensures purpose is at the heart of what they do. Well, next up, we have Nadine Heggie, Vice President Corporate Partnerships at National Geographic Europe and Africa, showing how partnerships are critical to this work and how they ensure their partnerships deliver impact. Over to you, Nadine.